I told her never come back to my house ever again.
I got you.
So when they knocked on the door, I said, "What do you want?" "It's Michael." I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, I need to tell you something." So I let her in, and then this other one comes down. I said, "Who's that?" "Oh, that's my friend." But I had heard, Michael didn't know this friend. Okay. And so I said, "Well, I have to ride out there with y'all, I guess," which I hated to because I couldn't stand either one of them.
Warning. The podcast you're about to listen to may contain graphic descriptions of violent assaults, murder, and adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Murder Police Podcast, The Vanishing of Michael Keith Gorley. What are they hiding? Part 1 of 3 with Michael's mother, Sandra Hasty, and his sister, Jennifer Gorley Coffey.
Well, welcome back, Jennifer and Sandra. Wendy couldn't be here today. She's on a little bit of a road trip. She says hello, and thanks for coming back and sitting down with us again. We sat down a couple years ago to talk about Michael's case and where it's at and what was going on with it. And I wanted to do that again because, unfortunately, we're at an anniversary point, and it's an anniversary that nobody should have to deal with. This is not an anniversary to celebrate, but I think it's important to recognize that and maybe encourage people who listen and watch to realize how much time has gone by without any answers or a sense of justice for you all. So thanks for sitting down. So Sandra, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, David?
Doing good. I love the shirt. That's going to be the shirt at the memorial this year.
Yes,
you're right. Good deal.
The 10th annual celebration of Life Candle Light Vigil for missing and murdered in Kentucky.
Amen. And what we'll do, too, is toward the end, we'll talk about how people can follow you on there because a lot of people may not know how successful that missing and murdered page is. How many tens of thousands of people do you have on there now?
Excuse me?
How many thousands of people are following it?
There's about 16,500 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of growth.
A lot of people would just get on and join, and you can't look at their profile. That's why I made the group private. Because, if they get on there, it's like they got a little circle by their name, and you try to click on their profile, and you can't see it. And my main goal is to protect the families of the missing and murdered and the missing and murdered.
I love it. It really is a good place to go for information on that.
Yes,
and
it is.
Probably helps people feel like they get a little bit of control of an out-of-control situation. So, and Michael's sister, Jennifer, how are you today?
Doing all right.
Good deal. Thanks for coming and sitting down again. And
well, thank you for meeting with us.
Yeah, I think it's important, and even though we talked about some of this before, we all know that there have been a few changes and a few things that I think that are important to the case, and so we'll go into those. Well, let's start out with this, and you all, like we've done before, who's Michael? From the day he's born to the day that we're talking about today where he went missing, but tell us as much as you can about who Michael is.
Michael was born on December 22nd, 1976 at Casey County Memorial Hospital. Back then, you had the nursery was right there in front of your mother. I watched my son be circumcised and all. He didn't even cry. And he was just a bundle of joy. I mean, up till his 38th birthday or up till he was 38. I mean, it's been 10 Christmases, 10 birthdays, 10 Mother's Days, 10 all holidays without Michael.
There we go, because that's the anniversary. 10.
He loved holidays.
Yeah.
He really did. He loved eating at holidays.
What was his favorite thing to eat?
Chicken and dumplings.
Okay, yeah, I'm down for that. I don't eat it anymore. We were just talking before we got started.
I have to
about
make it
diets
every
and stuff,
holiday.
I love it. I love it. My mom made pretty good chicken and dumplings too. So, Jennifer, what you're a sister, older or younger?
Younger.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the youngest.
Okay. Well, tell us what that's like when you get a brother.
Well, Michael, we grew up together, and like I said, he was older than me, but we went to school together all through our school years. He was always looking out for me. I was always kind of looking out for him because we were close. Growing up, we were always close. But just like brothers and sisters, we also, if there was an argument to be had, it was me and Michael. You know what I mean? But he liked to always crack jokes. He liked to cut up all the time. He was a funny guy. He was a good brother. I have no complaints in the brother area. Just a good guy. I mean, I miss him dearly.
I can understand that. Right before I retired, I lost my baby brother. I had 4 brothers. We all fought, right? I was in the middle. I always tell people that's learned how to fight, is that I got it and I gave it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that loss is incredible because when, for us to have the first one go away, incidentally, he died of a drug overdose in Louisville in 2020. And to have that first, to feel that connection just go. Mm-hmm. And we did. We fought tooth and nail, drove mom and dad crazy. Dad had to repair the house over it sometimes. But we loved each other.
Right.
And you still look back at that. I wouldn't change it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't change it. Maybe a few things. And one thing about my little brother is if you had a fight and it stopped, you'd wake up at 2 a.m. and he'd be beating you in the head with a Tonka truck. So he really had a hard time letting go. But so maybe I'd change that part because that hurt pretty bad. So unfortunately, I think I know what loss was. But here's the difference: is you've lost him without any answers,
right?
And that's where we're at too. So more about Michael too is. What were his hobbies and his interests, and what did he do for a living as he got older? Where did he focus? He
done a little bit of everything.
Okay.
He done tree service.
Okay.
He helped what was it he did at the castle?
Well,
the flooring.
Did. Yeah.
The flooring.
Oh, he worked at the castle.
He worked at the castle, yes.
On Versailles Road. Wow.
He did the flooring.
Okay.
At the castle.
Mm-hmm.
So he did tile work
Yeah.
at the castle on Versailles Road.
Yeah,
He's really proud of that.
He's done worked with floors and stuff like that, and he's worked on smokestacks.
Okay.
He's worked in oil rigs.
He's
done
that.
a little bit of everything.
Yeah. For the listeners and viewers, they need to Google the Versailles Castle. It's a real full-size castle. I tell people about it all the time. And I think the story is that a man was madly in love with his wife.
And then they divorced.
That's the punchline when I tell people,
Yeah.
is he built her an entire castle and then she left him.
Right.
So I'm like, stick to those cards from Dollar Store. Yeah, that's probably a better move to
Right.
make maybe. But I didn't know that before. That's kind of neat because me and Wendy have visited the castle more than one time. So neat stuff.
Yeah. But he did, like Mom said, several jobs. He did flooring. That was I'd say probably his last profession that he got into. He worked on smokestacks. He done welding.
Okay.
He was a MIG welder. He worked welding tractor and trailer trucks, I believe, out in Oklahoma.
Yeah, Texoma Truck and Body.
At one point, he owned a tree service business.
Okay.
It was kind of like a joint venture between him and my uncle. They did a lot of tree work.
Yeah.
A whole lot of tree work.
That's when we had the big ice storm.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
there's no shortage of tree work in Kentucky when the wind blows or the ice comes.
Right.
Yeah,
And this
there's
was we had a big ice storm
Bad
that
ice
year,
storm.
and there was just tree work to to be done everywhere you went. So
Yeah.
Michael's
that might
like,
have been the
"Cha-ching."
year
I've
that,
still got his ID from when he worked out on the oil rig, on the oil rigs in North Dakota.
I was going to ask you, what states did he hit?
North Dakota.
Gotcha. Because when I travel, like I was in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and I'm in Texas a lot, and Oklahoma, I'm still fascinated by the oil business and the big basin. Carlsbad, where I was at a couple weeks ago, they said that when they finally turned back into getting oil back in several years ago, that town started to breathe again. So neat work, hard work, right? Hard work. What other hobbies and stuff did he have?
Excuse me?
What other hobbies and passions did he have?
Oh, I could find a poem that he had wrote me,
Okay.
about 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, he loved watching movies.
Okay.
He was more like, I don't know, he said, Mom, let's watch a movie. And he'd lay on one couch, I'd lay on the other, and we'd watch movies. When he'd be home, that's what he wanted to do, was watch movies. And he loved a lot of comedies.
That's what I was going to ask is what he liked. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Loved to laugh.
He liked
Yeah,
to
in
laugh.
his younger years. So growing up with Michael and all through school, because we lived with Mom until we were up in like the 5th grade, and then we lived with her dad. Mom lived in Florida, Dad lived in Kentucky. Going through school, he loved playing football. That was everything. Eat, sleep, breathe football.
Number 55.
All
County
through school.
Rebel.
Elementary school, middle school, high school. Loved football. And then after high school, I would say his hobbies kind of turned to four-wheeling, mudding, the races.
Okay.
Him and his cousin Casey got kicked out of the car wash because they were back then. The Ponderosa, it was all dirt,
Yeah.
and they would go out there and race because they didn't have gates up then.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to the car wash and wash their Jeeps off. Well, they got kicked out of the car wash.
For putting too
Well,
much
it's a lot.
mud. Yeah, I'll bet it was chunks of mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, like blocking up
It's
the
a whole
drain
lot.
kind of mud.
Yeah.
Too funny, too good. So what I'm gathering though is the people that knew him in town and stuff. Not a big town, right?
Right.
But how many people live Junction City? Correct? Is that where you all are still from? Is that where you call home?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, me and Michael lived on McKinney Ridge Road in Sanford when he came up missing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
But he's from Junction. I mean, Hogue Hollow Road.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Copperhead Road, right now.
Yeah, that's a song.
Oh,
Yeah.
Persimmon Knob.
Okay.
We lived on White Oak Road growing up for years, and then after that, we lived on Persimmon Knob
Yeah.
for years. And then after we graduated high school, we all kind of ventured out on our own.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael stayed pretty local
Yeah.
to Junction, Boyle County area.
Yeah. It's pretty. It's real pretty.
Yeah.
It, we live in Jessamine County, and it's funny. I think I got Wendy used to it a few years ago, where she'd say, "Let's go to dinner," and she'd say something in Lexington. I'm like, "Nope. If we come out and get on 27, we're taking a left." And I told her, I said, if I'm gonna be in a car for 20 minutes, I want it moving with a view.
Right.
And so we seriously, Lancaster, Stanford, all the places, Boyle County, that's where we go to eat, just because it's more laid back,
Right.
and you don't have to deal with the knucklehead traffic back there. I think I worked too long in Lexington to deal with that too much. How did growing up with Michael? Did the way now? Let me go back, and I think I know the answer in this. Dad's dead.
Mhm.
When did y'all lose your father?
So Dad passed away in 2004
Okay.
from cancer.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think I remember from the last time. Did that shape anything with you and Michael or anything when losing Dad? How old were y'all when that happened?
I was 26. So Michael would have been 28.
28, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Michael and Dad were always together.
Yeah.
So Dad was his, biggest supporter. So when Dad passed away, it took a big toll on Michael mentally.
Sure.
Which, I mean, it did all of us, but Michael was more dependent on Dad, and they kind of stuck together through life. And then when Dad passed away, then it was kind of like Michael and Mom. So he went from kind of like being with Dad all the time to being with Mom all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did it change the way you behaved or anything like that?
Mhm.
How so? Could you feel comfortable talking about that, or?
Well, he went through like a
bad spell.
Okay. Yeah. Which we
Yeah.
all do, and
Yeah.
that's why I want to relax you
Yeah.
about that. Is that?
He went through a bad spell.
Yeah. Exactly.
But he
and we-
lost his aunt in February 2005, and then my mother. Michael was too kind-hearted. Okay, I don't care who the person was, what background they had. I've seen Michael take clothes out of his own clothes and put on people. Michael was born on his great-grandmother's birthday.
Okay, that's a neat coincidence. Yeah. It's
I heard them high heels coming down the hallway.
Gotcha.
I heard them. I said, that's Grandma coming.
Mhm.
And she brought him all kinds of pretty outfits and receiving blankets.
Mhm.
Where's that baby born on my birthday?
Yeah. There we go.
whenever Dad passed away, I guess that was a turning point for
Okay,
Mike.
gotcha. And that's not uncommon for people. I'm going to share this. My youngest brother, because I've experienced it. is when we lost Dad, there was a shift in who he was. And 10 years later, when we lost my mother, there was another shift in who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that, I think, accumulated in him having to deal with things he had a tough time dealing with.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why I asked that, is it did, we all handle those losses in different ways. I know losing my parents was very difficult, but I think it hit some people in my family harder than others, if that makes any sense on that too.
It was hard on all of us. Michael wouldn't. When my mother died,
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer was there with us.
Okay.
You know, but Michael stayed in the waiting room because he didn't want to see. They called her Ma Pat. He could not see her dying.
Gotcha. Sure,
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
Well, when our dad passed away, it was December of 2004. And then my Aunt Cheryl passed away in February of 2005. So it was just 2 months after Dad passed away.
Wow.
Well, then Ma Pat passed away in March of 2005. So we had 3 major deaths in our family within 4 months.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a
So
lot.
by the time Ma Pat passed away, I was emotionally numb. And I think I've stayed emotionally numb for about 10 years. And I didn't realize it at the time. People say, well, how do you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I was kind of like on autopilot.
I've said the same thing. Like when you lose people,
Yeah.
for me, and I know this is, and I'm not trying to be too distracted, but I think it's an important thing, is that for me, like 3 days of a fog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's when you do all that stuff with the funeral home and you do all those things, and it's
Yeah.
almost like really mechanical. And then later it catches up.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
It was kind of crazy. Like, I didn't even realize that I was kind of like numb for so long.
Yeah.
Not today.
And then
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. Like, me and my first husband divorced, and then it was like maybe a year after that, it was kind of like click. And all of a sudden, I was just like, wow, I have emotions. I can cry. I can do this. I can do that. But it took a long time.
Yeah, I think that's how we protect ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's how we get through the worst stuff in life. But I do think it comes back, and we pay the piper, and we finally. I don't know about paying the piper. I think we just go ahead and accept that, and then we start dealing with it in a more healthy way. In my opinion, I think that's the way it is for me too. A lot of times. Well, take us back to like May 12th in 2015, maybe a day or two before. Try to get everybody up to when he goes missing and what it was like just before, contact you had with him, where he last was, maybe a description of who he was with, things like that. If you can take us back to maybe
He
the
left
10th
my
or-
house May 17th in the morning, and that's the last time we saw him.
Was it 17th? I said 12th.
17th,
Where did I get that
yeah,
wrong?
May
Okay.
17th,
Yeah, well, I apologize.
2015.
Okay,
And that's the last time I saw him.
gotcha.
Yeah.
What was he doing right before then?
Michael,
Mhm.
sleeping in my bed.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
He was sleeping in my bed. He said, Mama, I'm going to sleep in your bed.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. So I'd sleep in his bed. He'd sleep in my bed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, take us up to when he goes missing.
So, Michael had gotten into some trouble,
Okay.
and he went to jail
Okay.
for a couple of months. And he got out of jail on May the 12th. And so he was out of jail for 5 days before he went missing.
Okay.
How long was he in jail? Like maybe 2 months? I'm pretty sure it was about a 2-month stretch.
Yeah,
That he was
it
in
was
jail.
60 days, and grand jury didn't indict, so they had to release him.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
So he got out May the 12th, and he went missing on May the 17th. So
was
he
that
only
in
out 5
Boyle
days.
County or Garrett County?
He was in Boyle County jail.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like getting that out because sometimes those answers might be with people that he was with, and so where that was.
Well,
is
he
kind
should
of
never went in
important.
jail. He had just gotten a car with these people
Mhm.
from Sanford to Boyle County. They found drugs on the driver and his girlfriend.
Okay.
They didn't find nothing on Michael or the girl, but I'm not going to mention the policeman's name. He's no longer a policeman. He took them all to jail and charged them with the same thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But the grand jury didn't indict 2 of them. They didn't indict
Mm-hmm.
Michael and the other girl in the back seat. They
Okay.
didn't indict.
Yeah.
But they did indict the driver and his girlfriend in the front.
Yeah.
And then she gets to jail and thought she was going to hide stuff in her underwear, and it all came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'd say that's getting caught dirty, right? That one way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't get indicted and they release him, which is how that works. Is
Right.
that, you know, once you hit that
Right.
time limit, you come
Mhm.
out. Take it from there. Take us to where when he went missing and where he was and when you found out.
Well, we were told he was on Highway 300.
Okay.
Okay. But we were told this from the people that were involved.
I see.
Okay. Now, the man at Highway 300, I did call at 11 o'clock at night. He said Michael was there. The next day, he changed his story. I'm like, Michael didn't come home.
Mhm.
Where's Michael? Don't know. I said, what you mean you don't know? He left walking between 8 and 9 last night. I said, hold up. I talked to you at 11 last night, and you said Michael was there. So we don't know if Michael was there or not.
Yeah. What's another name for Highway 300? Does it got a
Knoblick Road.
Knoblick Road? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Used to be
And-
a log cabin at the end. We used to call it Log Cabin Road.
Yeah, there
Okay.
used to be a log cabin at the end, and people would they call it old log cabin or log cabin?
Old Log Cabin Road.
Gotcha.
A slang
We lived
name
on that road
for
when
that
I was when I was a child.
That's what I thought.
My
Yeah.
my grandfather had a farm out there, and then he had a brick home out there.
Gotcha.
So I know. I mean, I just didn't know where Highway 300 was because I always knew Knoblick Road.
Well, that's why I asked. Is that it's when you live in the country, it's got a number and then it's got a name, and so whoever's closest usually goes by the name too.
Mm-hmm.
So he ends up at a house on Knoblick Road, right?
Yeah, they said he was.
he
If
was,
If
that's
he
what you're
was
told.
there, I'm not sure that he was there.
Yeah.
Because now I know he is there at some point because the bloodhounds picked up his scent.
Okay.
Okay, but then they went down Hatcher Road, right past the bridge, and they stopped them.
Mhm.
But the one tracker, which was one of the best bloodhounds ever, God rest his soul, he wanted to go up under this fence, but that's private property.
Right.
Well, wasn't nobody home, so one of the searchers raised the fence up. And, you know, we actually got video of it all,
Mhm.
you know, because
It was a watershed.
it was a watershed.
Gotcha.
So there's different rules for watershed and things like
Well,
that. But
anyway, he was standing at this tree, Tracker was. And, you know, I'm like, why? And they said, and then I found out that when the breeze blows, you know, they pick up the scent from the breeze.
Yeah. A wind scent.
And then he took off down Hatcher Road,
Mhm.
which Hatcher Road leads out to another area that I'm not going to mention.
Mhm.
But it's there. Every time I go down that road, I feel something.
Yeah. And that's Hatcher Road.
The road that I think they took Michael down.
Okay. Gotcha.
In where they might have disposed of him at.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
How long ago was that track done after he went missing?
What is it?
How long ago was that track done after he went missing?
2 weeks after he came up missing.
Okay. Let's back up again a little bit, just to make sure that the people watching and listening put this together. Is you make a phone call and you get told a story by a person that puts a timestamp on it of some kind, if I'm
Right.
hearing that right.
He
Well,
lied. He lied.
Yeah.
so
Period.
that morning, Michael was home. He left,
Mm-hmm.
and they shared a vehicle. He left in that vehicle
Mhm.
about 9 o'clock that morning.
Right. They claim Michael drove that vehicle in a pond, but
Later that afternoon, 2 females came to Mom's house without Michael and told her that he had drove his truck, we called it a truck, into a pond at
Mhm.
this particular house.
Okay.
And the owner of the house wanted the truck pulled out of the pond. So
I didn't know there was a pond out there.
Mom rode out there with those 2 females to see, you know, what do we need to pull this truck out of the pond? 'Cause,
Sure.
I mean, is it fully submerged? You know, is it barely in there? You know, we didn't know. So she went out there, she took pictures of it, sent it to me, and I'm like, well, I mean,
Only the
maybe
front tires were in the pond.
my husband's Jeep could pull it out when he gets off work. We'll see.
Mhm.
And so when he got off work that day, we went out there, and once we actually got to see it in person, he's like, my Jeep's not going to be able to pull that out. So he called one of his buddies that had a big Dodge truck, and he came out. him and another, he had a friend with him, and they were able to pull the truck out. It took a little while to get it pulled out.
And I drove it right up out of there when we got it out.
But we did get it pulled out. And then from there, we took the truck to my house and parked it. For one, because we didn't know if there's anything wrong with the truck or not. I mean, and it smelled like gas. I remember it smelled like gas.
Yep.
Yeah. So keeping the time straight, is that would be the 18th? Are we talking? Was it a full night passing to?
So that was on Sunday.
That was on the 17th that we
okay.
got the truck out.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And when you said, where was the pond at? So, and again, I want to keep
Wilderness
framing
Trail
it.
Road at
What
the
is it?
very end. Wilderness Trail Road in Sanford.
In Lincoln County.
So he's at a house. Do we know if any other people were at the house, or do we think other people were at the house at the time that he was there? If he was there, is that a...
Well, the two females that came to Mom to tell her that Michael had drove the truck in the pond and he needed it pulled out. I mean, we assumed that they were there because, they were coming to Mom to say, hey, you need to get the truck out of the pond. So,
did they offer any more about what led up to the truck? I know they said that he drove it in there, but did they tell a story about that he left the house? They
claimed that Michael was acting out and just kind of doing wild stuff.
There's no way from the time he left the house. I don't think Michael drove that truck in the pond.
But considering the source, we didn't feed a lot into it. We were just mostly concerned with getting their only vehicle out of the pond because they needed it.
Yeah.
They needed to go to the store. They needed to get around.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Was in your mind was when the truck was in the pond, in your mind was Michael missing then? Or was it kind of like...
Don't think I didn't look all the way through that pond.
There was no concern at that point about Michael missing.
Gotcha.
I mean, based on what they were telling us, and I knew that Michael had been out to my grandma's house that day.
Okay.
Because I had picked my uncle up and gave him a ride, and he was telling me that Michael and these two females had came to grandma's looking for somebody to pull the truck out, and that he ended up borrowing a log chain from my other uncle that was there.
But a log chain went there and didn't show up.
But
this
is all of my dad's people.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my other uncle, he had like a small truck. No way it would have pulled, that truck out of the pond. And he gave him a phone number of somebody to call that Mike could pull the truck out. So we knew from my uncle that I had talked to that Michael had been at Grandma's. Told him that the truck was in the pond and he was trying to get it pulled out. And based on what that uncle was telling me, that Michael wasn't acting out of character. He wasn't acting like he was on something, or he was high, or he was drunk, or under the influence. And so it was just kind of like, well, why would he drive his truck, his only vehicle, in a pond?
Yeah,
so that was kind of a big question mark.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the biggest question at the point right now. Is it...
But he had enough sense about him that he was trying to get it pulled out. So I knew that, and then when I had made my way up to Mom's house that day, because my oldest daughter had stayed the night with her that weekend. I say stay the night. Well, she stayed the weekend with Mom, and I picked her up on that Sunday. And when I went up there to pick her up, those two females were there, and they were in the living room telling Mom that Michael had drove his truck in the pond. The owner of the house wanted it pulled out, and trying to figure out how they were going to make that happen. And then I'd already knew from my uncle that Michael had been at Grandma's, and that had told them he had drove the truck in the pond, and he was looking for a way to get it pulled out. So I kind of already knew that as well.
Sure. And it smelled like gas. Could you pinpoint where the smell of the gas was in the truck, or was it just
in the back of the truck?
In the back of the truck. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's a 2001 Ford Explorer 2. It's only got 2 doors, but it's got a hatchback. Yeah.
Okay.
But see, when the two females come, the one female, I would not let near the house. Okay.
How come?
I told her never come back to my house ever again.
I gotcha.
So when they knocked on the door, I said, "What do you want?" "It's Michael." I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, I need to tell you something." So I let her in, and then this other one comes down. I said, "Who's that?" "Oh, that's my friend." But I had heard, Michael didn't know this friend.
Okay.
Okay. And so I said, well, I'll have to ride out there with y'all, I guess, which I hated to because I couldn't stand either one of them.
Hey, you know there's more to the story, so go download the next episode like the true crime fan that you are.
The Murder Police podcast is hosted by Wendy and David Lyons and was created to honor the lives of crime victims, so their names are never forgotten. It is produced, recorded, and edited by David Lyons. The Murder Police podcast can be found on your favorite Apple or Android podcast platform, as well as at murderpolicepodcast.com, where you will find show notes, transcripts, information about our presenters, and a link to the official Murder Police podcast merch store, where you can purchase a huge variety of Murder Police podcast swag. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is closed caption for those that are hearing impaired. Just search for the Murder Police podcast and you will find us. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe for more and give us 5 stars and a written review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts. Make sure you set your player to automatically download new episodes so you get the new ones as soon as they drop. And please tell your friends. Lock it down, Judy.